Dear students, I welcome you on behalf of Thakur Vidya Mandir High School and Junior College for the remote teaching learning process, where our motto is let learning be a joy and teaching a pleasure.
Let us move towards Part 7 of Chapter number 3, Issue of Shares, wherein today we are going to understand the procedure for allotment of shares and the content of share certificate. Let us move towards question number 9, that is, explain briefly the procedure for allotment of shares. As discussed earlier, allotment of shares means allocating or giving certain number of shares by board of directors to an applicant based on the application which they have submitted. Every company allotting shares needs to follow a procedure, so let us understand the same. Firstly, the company needs to appoint an allotment committee. Once the subscription list is closed, the company secretary informs the board of directors about the same and advises them to make the necessary preparations for allotment of shares. If the issue is par subscribed or undersubscribed, then the board of directors themselves carry on the allotment of shares. Now, we need to understand as to what is par subscribed and undersubscribed. When the number of the shares offered is equal to the number of shares subscribed, it is called as par subscribed. On the other hand, if the number of the shares subscribed by the public is less than the number of shares offered, it is called as undersubscribed. Further, if the issue is oversubscribed, that is, the number of the shares subscribed by the public is more than the number of the shares offered by company, it is called as oversubscription. In such a case, the board of directors appoints an allotment committee who looks after the work of allotment. Lastly, the allotment committee decides the basis on which the allotment should be done and then prepares a report on the same and submits it to the board of directors. The next step involves conducting or holding a board meeting so that the decision relating to the basis of allotment can be finalized. This meeting is basically conducted to approve formula of allotment which is suggested by allotment committee. While the formula for allotment is being prepared, a representative of SEBI is also present to protect the interest of investors. The allotment formula also requires approval by stock exchange authorities if the shares are listed. Once the allotment formula is approved, the company secretary prepares application list, that is a list containing the names of all the applicants who have applied for the shares of company. Not only that, even an allotment list is made which contains the name of the allottees, that is all those applicants who have been allotted shares. Lastly, this list is considered to be valid only if it is signed by the chairman and the secretary. Next, the company needs to pass a resolution at the board meeting for allotment of shares. With the passing of resolution, the secretary is given the authority to issue letters of allotment and letters of regret. All those applicants to whom company has allotted shares must be sent a letter of allotment, whereas all those applicants to whom company has not issued shares must be informed by sending a letter of regret. Further, When the company sends letter of regret, it also needs to return or refund the application money along with it. Now, this method of sending allotment letter and regret letter is adopted when the company issues shares in physical form. However, if the company issues shares in electronic mode, or computerized form, in that case it does not send allotment letter to each and every individual applicant. It just informs the respective depository, that is NSDL or CDSL, about the allotment of shares. Now we need to understand as to what is depository. Depository is a system or an organization which holds security in electronic form. In our country, there are two depositories, that is NSDL, and the full form of the same is National Security Depository Limited, and the second one is CDSL, that is Central Depository Services Limited. The company provides complete information about the applicants who have been allotted shares, number of shares allotted, etc. to the respective depository. Once the allotment letter reaches the allottees, the next step involves collection of allotment money from them. The allotment letter clearly specifies the amount of allotment money to be paid by the applicant. They are supposed to submit this amount with the bankers, and even the time limit for such payment is also specified. Lastly, as per the Companies Act, ASBA, that is application supported by blocked amount, is mandatory for all public issues and rights issue. Now, under ASBA, an applicant for share makes an application to his bank to block the amount of application money. Later on, in case if the applicant is allotted shares, then the allotment money or full issue value of shares is transferred by the applicant's bankers to the company's bankers. Let us now move towards the fifth step, which is arrangement relating to letter of renunciation. All those applicants who have received letter of allotment have a right to renounce, that is, they can give up their shares in favor of another person. However, for this purpose, they have to fill a form called as renunciation form. This renunciation form then needs to be submitted to the company along with the original copy of allotment letter. Further, this requires the approval from the Board of Directors. Once the directors give their approval, the Secretary then enters the name of the new allottees in the application and allotment list. The sixth step is arrangement relating to splitting of allotment letters. Sometimes the allottees, that is, the applicants who have been allotted shares, request the company for splitting of allotment letters. Now, we need to understand the meaning of splitting letter. The term splitting letter means putting the shares in one or more name. However, even splitting of allotment letters requires the approval of Board of Directors. Once the board gives their approval, the Secretary enters the complete details of split in a separate list called as List of Split Allotment. Lastly, the Secretary is also required to issue the split letters. The seventh step is filing the written of allotment. Nextly, the information related to allotment of shares must be provided in detail to the registrar of companies within a period of 30 days from allotment of shares. For this purpose, the company secretary needs to file a written of allotment. This written gives details like names and addresses of the allottees, values of the shares allotted, amount paid or payable on each shares, etc. Let us now move towards the eighth and the last step involved in procedure of allotment, that is preparation of register of members and issue of share certificate. Lastly, the secretary has to make the necessary entries in the register of members giving complete details of all those applicants who have been allotted or who have been paid the allotment money. Not only that, the secretary is also required to prepare share certificate and distribute the same among the allottees, that is the members, within a period of 2 months of allotment of shares. Share certificate is a document which acts as an evidence, that is the person named in there is the holder of specified number of shares. With this, dear students, we have completed the 8 steps which are involved in the procedure relating to allotment of shares. Let us now move towards question number 10, that is state the contents of share certificate. Before understanding the contents, let us know the meaning of share certificate. Firstly, it is a registered document which is issued by company under its common seal, which is given as an evidence or proof of ownership of specified number of shares mentioned therein. It is a prima facie evidence of title to shares, that is, it is a basic proof which is sufficient enough to reflect the ownership of shares by its holder. Next, it needs to be signed by 2 directors and company secretary or any other person authorized by company. Further, company is required to issue share certificate to all the allottees within a period of 2 months from the date of allotment of shares. Not only that, the company must issue share certificate even to the transferees within a period of 1 month from receiving instrument of transfer, that is transfer form, in case of transfer of shares, whereas in case of transmission they should at least get an intimation for the transmission, and then only the share certificate will be issued within a period of 1 month. Let us now move towards the contents of share certificate. What do you mean by contents? Contents indicates the details which are required to be included in share certificate. The first one is name of the company, CIN number, that is corporate identity number, and dear students, we have already studied about corporate identity number in your 11th standard. CIN number is a unique number which is given to each and every joint stock company for its identification, and it is compulsory for all the companies to mention about the same on all its documents. Next, it should also include the registered office address of the company. Second, folio number. Folio number means number of the page of the shareholders register on which the details of a shareholder are recorded. Further, it should also include the share certificate number, the name of the member, the name of the registered shareholder. Next, it should include the nature of the share, that is whether it is equity share, preference share. It should also include the number of shares, that is 100 shares, 200 shares. Not only that, the shares are numbered, as we very well know, we have studied in features of shares, that is it needs to have a separate or a distinctive number. Even that needs to be specified on the share certificate. Nextly, it should also specify the amount which is paid on shares. Further, it should also have common seal, that is, an official signature of joint stock company. Further, share certificate need to be signed by at least two directors and company secretary. So with this, dear students, today we have completed two questions. We have studied two questions, that is procedure relating to allotment of shares and the contents of share certificate. Thank you, dear children, for your patience listening.